We have the bulk of inflows into Egypt, though, concentrating on oil and gas. Are we going to see more diversified inflows into Egypt? What are you trying to do?
Indeed, the foreign direct investment has been significantly picking up. I mean, total private investment has increased by 47%. FDI has picked up by 15%. Indeed, you're very accurate. A large bulk of that investment comes from gas and oil. But however, the current investment law has provided a lot of incentives to attract, diversify the sectors, attract more investment to sectors that are specifically creating jobs that will enhance productivity and attain inclusive growth.
The economic reforms that we have seen in Egypt so far have focused a lot on the fiscal and monetary side of things. Are we going to see more impetus towards cutting regulatory red tape and improving the business environment?
Yeah. We started first with strengthening the macroeconomic fundamentals. That's a prerequisite for any sound or resilient economy. Fiscal monetary, that's very true. We started with major fiscal consolidations and monetary policy, including the flotation of the exchange rate. But then we moved firmly with the structural adjustment, including cutting down red tape, removing bureaucracy. The investment law has put a lot of assurances and guarantees and has established an investor service center that does exactly that. Number of steps has significantly dropped. Procedures have been streamlined, and that is even reflected in, as you've indicated, in the ratings at the World Bank reports.
As you travel around the world in your capacity as minister and talk to international partners or prospective partners about investing in Egypt, what is the biggest draw? Why do they want to do it? And what is the biggest obstacle?
Good question, David. I think the key stimulus here is mainly Egypt is a huge market. It's a young population, so it gives you a lot of skilled labor force. Cost of doing business is very competitive, is very low compared to neighboring economies or even other emerging economies. Now we have an investment law and the companies law and the bankruptcy law, so the whole legislative framework is really conducive and has an edge, and hence that is also, I see that reflected in numbers. So I look at the number of new companies established has increased by 40%. That's a significant increase. And more important, going back to Shery's question, it's creating jobs, because that's what we're aiming for. We're aiming for quality investment that will create jobs and will create inclusive growth and in a sustainable manner.
In recent years, Egypt has gone through a fair amount of turmoil, and there's been concern about stability and security. For example, I think your tourist industry was hit very, very hard a few years ago. Where are you on that? Is it a stable, secure environment? Can you reassure investors about coming in?
I think the best way is, let's reflect on where Egypt was a few years back, just before 2013, and where are we today? We've gone a long way. We've turned it around in many ways, not just through macroeconomic reforms and institutional and structural adjustment, but we've also made it much easier to do business. And stability is maintained, political, economic, and social stability. So the reappointment of President Sisi for a second term is a vote of confidence from the Egyptian people. And more important, it's the faith in the program and the vision that the president has put, the ground vision that he has put for the country. And despite that these reforms have had adverse implications on some segments in society, nevertheless, we made sure that we package it with the right social safety net to ensure social stability. So here you have the political stability established, but also the social stability, which takes us also to a sound and resilient economic framework.
What about the stability of the region in itself? Because Egypt is still part of the Saudi-led coalition that's isolating Qatar. How much will that play into foreign investors looking at Egypt and thinking the geopolitical tensions surrounding the area may not be perfect for their investments?
Let's put it into perspective. So as a Minister of Investment, what I see is that, in fact, what is happening in the region has helped, in a way, to attract more investments into it's a safe haven. So you see a lot of interest from the Gulf countries coming in, a lot of interest also from North Africa overall. So, and of course, if I'm talking globally, because we are attracting investment from Europe, from the US here. So we see what's happening overall in the region is not at all having any implication on the economic situation in Egypt. Let's look at the outlook, the economic outlook that was just announced at the IMF World Bank spring meetings, the MENA economic outlook, which highlights the rebound in the economic situation in MENA region, and actually highlights that Egypt and Iraq were the main driving force for this increase in growth. So I see it in a way that the region is picking up overall in terms of growth, and in fact, Egypt is a driving force in achieving that.
So finally, address one thing specific to Egypt, the Sinai, the situation in the Sinai. How big a problem is that for the Egyptian government? And by the way, to what extent are you cooperating with Israel? Because it does strike me that one of the remarkable things in that region has been the enduring relationship, actually, between Egypt and Israel.
The best approach of fighting terrorism or extremism is development, is development, and is through investing in human capital, and this is exactly what we're doing currently in Sinai. So there is a lot of cleaning up, there is a lot of investment that is coming in, whether from the public investment side through the infrastructure, developing the healthcare service, the schooling, establishing investment zones and industrial zones to create jobs. So globally, the best way to fight any extremism is through development, and that's exactly Egypt's approach in Sinai. And in fact, Sinai was one of the key highlights. We're discussing with the World Bank, and we're putting a package now of developmental assistance jointly with all the Arab funds, as well as the World Bank taking the lead in developing this lagging region.